So I was watching The Young Turks, one of my personal favorite news sources, and they were covering a story about Sweden's economy. Now, of course, we're not talking about how Sweden is socially. Obviously, Sweden socially is a disaster, and I could get into that in another video. But let's look at how they are economically. Now, the first thing is, Sweden has high taxes, strong unions, and an equal distribution of wealth. That's the recipe for a success in globalized world, according to, I have no clue how to pronounce that, Magdalena Andersson, the social democrat economist who's also Sweden's finance minister. Oh, so already, they're basically saying Sweden's prospering because they embraced high taxes, unions, and some amount of wealth redistribution. Okay. They say when referring to Miss Anderson that the 50-year-old has been raising taxes and spending more on welfare since winning power in 2014. Okay, so we're going somewhere already. Sweden's decently prosperous. They have a decent amount of welfare. They have a decent amount of high taxes. They have some decently strong unions. But, let's read how it's helping them. Let's read. This is another piece. Sweden has one of the world's highest tax burdens, with tax revenue about 43% of GDP, according to OECD data. The equivalent figure in the US is about 26%. Sweden's economy has grown almost twice as fast as America's, expanding 3.1% last year compared with 1.6% in the US. So, stronger unions, higher taxes, a decent amount of welfare seems to mean an economy is prosperous. Okay. So, already we know that Sweden's at least doing something right, and it's more than likely, those three factors. And you want to know why this is? Because when you give money to lower class people, they are going to have to give it back to the economy by necessity. Someone who's in the upper class might buy a mansion or a yacht here and there, but at some point, but they're not going to buy nearly as often or give back nearly as much to the economy as someone who has to give back to the economy in order to survive. And this is why, if we don't only need welfare, we do need a decent amount of capitalism, but it has to be combined with some amount of welfare, some amount of taxation, and some amount of taxation. Otherwise, you just have the rich get all the money, and occasionally it trickles down to the poor, like maybe once in a while, if you're lucky. Now, of course, there is a problem in some countries that have high unemployment. Let's read about Sweden. Sweden has the highest labor force participation in the European Union. Anderson attributes this to tax-funded parental leave and affordable daycare, which makes it easier for both parents to work. It's almost like if you have somebody paid to watch your kids, you don't have to worry about watching them, so you're going to go do something else, And in a good amount of cases, that's going to be go and work, so you can provide income to your family. These people, that's what happens in these countries. They give you money, they have affordable daycares and parental leave, so that way, both parents can work if they need to. And that way they can bring in extra money, and therefore there's a lower unemployment rate. It's not that complicated. Now, of course, there's also the issue that this could cause some high debt. Which, that was one thing I heard constantly when Bernie Sanders was campaigning. Oh, how are you guys going to pay for it? Well, there's this entire thing called the rest of Bernie Sanders' plan, which gives you a good list of reasons of how he's going to pay for it. But they ignore that. But does having social programs cause national debt? Well, let's read it. Apparently, in contrast to most of its European peers, Sweden has budget surpluses. So, Sweden has basically no debt. They have they have a good amount of social programs. very little debt. Because they embraced higher taxes and embraced amounts of welfare, and because they embraced unions, and because they embraced the things that liberals have been telling you guys makes healthy economies. This is proof of it. This is proof the liberals were right the entire time. And again, this is just economic-wise. Of course, we're not going to get into Sweden's social policies. That was a complete disaster. Like, honestly, Sweden has probably some of the worst social policies in the entire world. But as for how they are, in terms of their economy, they're doing great. Because they embraced social democrat ideas. That being, affordable health, that being, affordable daycares, that being welfare, that being taxes. And that led to a very prosperous economy. So basically, we should do what Sweden has been doing because, what Sweden's doing is working. That's it. I'm Cifro Joe, and good night.